Okay, now Taxii is what sends that threat intelligence from one machine to another. And so there's a page here explaining the same one you've seen before, what sticks and Taxii are. And so when you talk about network exchanges, you typically describe it in terms of a curl request. This is just kind of standard way to express it. So in the Linux command curl can be used to send this post request to the server requesting something, but it's hard to read. The curl itself is kind of hard to read, and the response is just a blob of XML formatted stuff that is for machines to read, not for humans to read. So you can do it with curl, but that's not the most friendly way to do it. The most friendly way to do it is to use a real proxy, and the main one you use in penetration testing is Burp, so it's the one I'm used to. Other developers often use one called Charles, and there are others. So Burp is just a proxy which intercepts traffic leaving a web browser going to the internet and lets you view it and modify it. And the modern versions of Burp have a built-in browser, which is very nice because an irritating step to students is connecting a browser to Burp, and you don't need to do that anymore. You can go to the proxy tab, turn off intercept, and then open browser. And I should have a browser somewhere. There it is. Good. I can go to websites in there. So you can catch the Taxii request from curl in there. I guess I'm going to do that. Let me see if I can do this directly from my Mac. All right. First, I need to get the Taxii request in there. I might have a little bit of a difficulty here. Let's try this. I have to make my proxy listen, not on 127, but on a public address. So I edit, and 172.20.119, that might be it. Let's try that. And let me try just a command prompt and see what addresses I have here. Clear. If I do ifconfig en0, I say, that's my max. It is 172.20.1.9. Okay, I probably can do it from here then. 172. Let's see if this works. But that would be the address in the proxy, which is 172.20.1.9. Okay, let's see if this works. That would do the curl and send it to the proxy. And let's see if it got anything. It did. Good. I don't know why I didn't get a response, but you can't have everything. Intercept is off. Okay. So it did get a response. All right. Somehow it didn't get back to my command line, but this will do. All right. So HTTP history, you can view it here. All right. So here's the request. And there. Now I can be able to make it bigger. No, maybe that isn't going to make it bigger. Just a moment. All right. I got to hit history. Just a moment. Well, I try to make this bigger. Burp. User options. Yeah, it's kind of bad for the video there to be this small. Options. All right, I'm going to pause the video while I figure out how to make the font bigger. Okay, so I finally found how to change this, which was, I think, user options and then display. There's two places here to change it in case anybody wants to do it yourself. Although you're home users, the small font is probably okay. So here is the request sent to the server. This is what it looks like in a much friendlier way. So I'm sending a request to this public server called halataxi.com. which is a free public server for you to practice using Taxii. And I send it a discovery request with this XML information here. And so when I send that, I get a response here. The response is 200 OK. This protocol is running on top of HTTP. So 200 means it made it there. And here's the response. Discovery tells you what services are available on this server. And here you see discovery itself is the service I just used. Collection management lets you see what collections are available. And poll lets you ask one of those collections for information. So now I can go back to my instructions here. All right. So that's what we just did, those three things, those three service types. Make this a little smaller. All right, so now we can send this request to the repeater so we can modify it. This is what Burp is good for. Once you have a HTTP request, you can play with it in Burp and modify it. So here's the repeater, and I'm going to get rid of the inspector and just have request and response here. And now I can make it into the other kind of response. So here, I want to change the folder name to Taxii data and change the request to collection information request. So I changed the folder name to Taxii data and change this to collection information request. And I got this information from the reply to the discovery request. It told you these facts in that XML-based reply. If I did it right, I get a 200 OK, and now I get a list of the collections that are available here. Here's data feeds. There's guest.cybercrime tracker. There's guest.emerging threats rules, and various other ones like malware domain list host list. And one of these is going to be fish tank, which is the one I'm going to use. So when I go to there's the available collections, guest abuse, guest cybercrime, and so on. And somewhere at the bottom is going to be guest fish tank. Yep, guest.fishtank_com. All right. That's what we're going to use. So I'm going to keep this one around and send it to the repeater again. So I go to, in the lower pane, click the request tab, right click and send to repeater again. All right, now I have two things I can repeat. This is the original one, and this is the one that I'm going to modify to collect the data from the fish tank. And so to do that, I'm going to replace line 10 with all of this junk. I'm not going to change anything at the top, but I'm going to change the data sent at the bottom to this. And this should work because I'm not using a virtual machine or anything. Copy and paste should work. So I take that stuff, delete it, and insert that stuff. This is the correct pull request. And what this is going to do is ask the fish tank database for data between a couple of time date stamps here. And you see, I'm only going for a 10-minute period in 2018 from 2 o'clock to 2:10 Zulu time, which is GMT. That way I won't have an overwhelming amount of response. And there it is. Here's my response. It's still pretty big. These are all the indicators that were uploaded at that time. Here's something like is considered high severity, I guess, open source identity. Again, not terribly readable. We're going to play with this. All right. Anyway, there's a flag you can find there to show that you got this far. And that's the Taxii protocol. And I think I'm not going to do the next one live. I'm just going to point out the next two projects. In Cabby, you do it with Python, so you get more control over this. Cabby is a special Python library designed to interact with Taxii, Stix and Taxii. So now there's a command called Taxii discovery that will just give you the response in a nice friendly form. And there's Taxii collections that will just list you the collections. And now that you have it in Linux, you can use Linux commands like grep and cut to filter it. So you can grep for name and get just lines that contain the word name, and you get a really nice list without all the extraneous data. And you can pull fish tank. Here's the same pull looking for that same 5-minute period or 10-minute period from 2 o'clock to 2:10. Then you get 136 blocks pulled, and you can redirect the output to a file with Linux commands, and then you can use head and less and other Linux commands to filter that file to get down to just the interesting stuff. So you can find out, just extract out of this mess just the URLs. And when you're done, you can make a file that will just have the URLs that Fish Tank tells you are malicious. Just those lines without all the extraneous data in a file. And the reason you would do that is because that is now in position, you can put it in an automatic defense like a Squid proxy. Squid is a Linux-based free proxy that you often use for this purpose, to limit people's access to the internet. And you can install Squid and you can configure Squid to remove anything that's in that list of forbidden URLs. And that's what these projects guide you through. So you can take a live feed and put it in a proxy and block access to those sites. And this is what a lot of endpoint protection suites are doing, like Windows Defender and stuff. They're getting a feed and blocking all connections to those feeds that are known phishing sites. This is how it works behind the scenes. And that's what I wanted to show you about the threat intelligence feeds.